I love that pic.
Well, hello there. Greetings, chat room, moderators. Hello, Soul Tribe listeners and participants and panelists. And welcome our featured guests. Tonight we have Esoteric Egypt Part 3, featuring Dalibor, Suchy Sun Rabbit, Mandy Moo, and soon to join us from Boots on the Ground will be Julianne Payne. And Trina's having some technical difficulties, so we hope to get her in soon. If not, we'll see her in chat.
Yeah.
And Karen is traveling. She's in the process of traveling this evening, but will be watching the show when she can. So we wish her well and good intents and safety for her travels.
Yep, safe travels.
And that goes for all of our travelers out there, including Al and Perry.
And Perry, you betcha.
Much safety travels to all of you. So welcome back to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway to community support, help, friendship, knowledge, and above all, love. We have the love. So we have a really exciting show tonight for you folks. We've been waiting to get Mandy Moo on here because she's been researching her little self to death over there in Australia. Because out of all the stuff we talked about last time, with all these civilizations all developing a similar basic fundamental spiritual philosophy dealing with the sun and the deity of the sun, and the travelers, the 7 travelers with their guru or master teacher popping up in all of these different civilizations over time. Similar names, same philosophies, universal laws and wisdom. Apparently, after some great catastrophe occurred, whether it be an otherworld catastrophe or whether it be from Atlantis, we don't know. But we do know that there's too many similarities to say that it wasn't all at one time connected in a very profound way. So we don't have exact 100% positive, verifiable evidence everywhere, but we have bits and pieces that are starting to come together more and more. And I have to question, why now? Is all this starting to really finally mesh? You know, these places are all aligned on a grid. They're all facing a certain way. They're all looking at the summer solstice. They all have similar philosophies, stories, dreams, visions. So Australia happens to be one of those of many places that appears to be tied into this whole scenario, and then some, because there seems to be 2 different times during Australia's history where they may have been visited by proto-Egyptian societies and the dynasty Egyptians later on. So they're finding evidence all over caves and rock walls and places in Australia, and I have to wonder, why Australia, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Australia has a lot of crystals, and it has a lot of gold. The Egyptians used a lot of that in their materials. So there could have been a reason for them to want to, you know, use them as a resource. So Mandy has been very kind to work with us on a slideshow presentation. And Laurie and me and Mandy have put it all together here. And that, I hear some noise in the background there. So we might be able to start out with the slideshow. That Mandy can walk us through it. Dalibor has a lot of experience in dealing with dates and times. He and I went over some of that today, and he has a lot to contribute. We're on Skype together finally.
All right.
Yeah, he talked me into it.
Manage that. Awesome.
Resistance is futile.
No doubt. Hey, I do know there's some people in chat with us, and I'd like
we'll say hi to them.
Shout out to them real quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, cool. We'll say hi to them because I saw them starting to roll in. I was giving them a chance to.
We've got Deborah Sloan. Welcome. Chloe. Much love to you. Always there. Love that.
Jojo.
Jojo. Elderberry. Hi, Barry Chad. Paula. Rainbow Phoenix. Deborah Truo. Welcome.
Yep.
Trina Phoenix having some technical issues, but she's going to join us as soon as she can.
There's David Knoll. Hey, David.
Yeah, David Knoll. Brenda. Milky Way.
Robert
B. Looking good, everybody. Truth Seeker, good to have you with us, Jaya Shear. Michelle Cannon Free, McFreezer. Yeah.
See Deborah Stroh's in there. Did you see her? Deborah?
Yeah, Janine. Good to have you with us, Janine.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that is Lost in Space. Welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, right. Trina Bean. Well, Trina, you'll join in as best you can from the chat room. This is going to rock your socks, okay? All righty. So anyway, Jules is in town. She tried to link in from the Gympie Pyramid itself, the location of the Gympie Pyramid, but there isn't any signal there. She went all the way around it and tried to link us in. So she's on her way into the town of Gympie, and she's going to link in. She's going to try to link in from there, from the actual rock wall that has all the monolithic stones for the church that they built back in the late early 1800s. So we'll hook her in as soon as we can. We were hoping to get her at the pyramid, but she just couldn't get the signal.
Yeah.
Bless her heart. She tried.
Yeah, she tried. She's awesome.
All right. So let's start with your slides, Mandy. I'll hand it over to you and Dalibor, okay? And don't forget to take your speaker off. There you go.
Thank you. I was just making sure I got rid of that background noise. So when you said before, like, well, why Australia? Why not Australia? Everybody wants to come here. It's awesome. And I think these places have possibly been in many other places of the world. It's just Australia is so, we're not as developed as many other countries and things like that. So they're still finding, as they're starting to remove things for development now, they're only just starting to like really,
So when they start digging holes and moving dirt, things start to appear, huh?
To put that in perspective, my country, which is Czech Republic, can fit into Australia exactly 98 times, yet it has only twice the population of my country.
Oh, wow.
So in other words, it's a very sparsely populated area.
Yeah, we almost fit into mainland USA, and we've got less than 1/10 of the population of the US.
Yep.
Yeah, and even some of these sites now, like the one in Gympie, they're currently trying to put a road through this Gympie pyramid site, which is actually quite sad. So trying to save a lot of these sites so they can actually get properly looked at for what they are. So, I'll go into a little bit about, I came across this about 2 years ago. I don't remember where I came across it, but just something about ancient Egyptian sites. I think it might have been the Gosford glyphs. And then from there, I just got really intrigued and came across all these other different locations, from the Gympie Pyramid to pyramids in Cairns to certain scarabs that were found at Airlie Beach, coins that have been dug up and that are from different reigns. So I just found it so interesting, and then really found this link. So yeah, if you wanted to start the slides.
You got it, Mandy. I can do that for you.
You know what? Both Trina and Jules were saying the same thing, so I'm gonna send them both an email again.
And I just sent emails.
Okay.
So I can do that one more time.
Okay. The same link we're using and we're in, so it's just strange.
Okay, so they both received that. I took care of that.
All right.
Let's get going with your slides there. Here we go. First slide. You're sporting that hat pretty cool, like there.
Well, Al was kind enough to make a floating head for us for our Mandy Dundee.
Oh, that's great. Jules just joined us, by the way.
Okay, great. Hey, she's in. Yay.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know what was going on, but anyway, I'm here now.
Awesome.
Well, that's great.
So go ahead with the slideshow, and then I'll show you the rocks, or
Okay.
We'll see how
do you want me to speak about Gympie a little bit before we do the slideshow?
Yeah, that would be great, actually.
Okay, so there was a pyramid found in Gympie in 1975. And that was founded, so the person that first originally founded that was a man by the name of Mr. Rex Gilroy and his wife Heather Gilroy. So they were the first ones to recognize it as a structural, as the structure as a pyramid. So the stones from around Surfacing Hill Church come from the original site of the Gympie Pyramid. Some rocks were quarried from the sandstone, from Roxroad sandstone quarry, and some of these original rocks were also laid the foundations for some of the original buildings and early miners' cottages. So what they would do is they would go out with expeditions with the church in the 1800s and bring back some of these rocks to build the church walls or the foundations for the church, because the foundation of the Surfacing Hill Church is also made out of these same stones. So there was also around the same site, there was found 13 columns arranged into a circle formation, and each pillar had its own individual marking. Previous studies could not determine if these were Egyptian glyphs or Chinese of origin. Sorry, Egyptian or Chinese glyphs of origin. It is suspected that they may have been a site for an ancient astronomical observation because of their circular arrangement and the fact that there was 13 of them, being 13 lunar cycles within the year, and each one having its own unique marking. However, 50 to 60 years ago, a local landlord living just down the hill from the site didn't want anyone coming and taking his land from him if it was recognized as something, so he took a bulldozer to it. However, there are still some stones there remaining in place, and they did try and salvage what they could off the glyphs, but it was not enough.
Wow.
And
you see that those are very old. Those are ancient rocks. Yeah.
That's obviously megalithic construction.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a video clip from an archaeologist who the town had called in there in Gympie to do a study. So he went on YouTube and he spoke to folks, and he went out to Gympie and visited the pyramids, and then he was standing in front of the same wall Jules is at right now. And that's what attracted him the most, was this wall, because of the age of the stones and the fact that they're monolithic in nature. So he came to the conclusion that the visitors there in the late 1800s were getting the local Aborigines to go around and help them collect new stones and rocks. Not new, but collect anything what they could find. So they basically pillaged all of these old temples and sites and ancient sites out of their own ignorance to construct this wall here for this church. And some of these exact same monolithic stones can be found at the Gympie pyramid site. It like it was a quarry almost. And so these archaeologists were trying to say it's not really a pyramid, it's a rock quarry. But why build it with step pyramid shapes and structures, and why build it in the shape of a pyramid if it's just if that's all it is?
The other thing that they tried to put it down to was they tried to say that this was a place where they made this structure for growing grapes. However, with the topography, so the type of soil and also the lake, so the small creek that feeds the area is not enough to sustain a crop like grapes. Oh, that's quite interesting, Jules.
Yeah.
That's an
quartz inside. It's inside the actual rock, that bit of quartz, and that's all been written on. You can see that would have been carved there.
Written on.
Yeah.
That's a quartz inclusion inside inside a granite matrix, but that looks like petroglyphs actually. Has anybody analyzed or tried to analyze any of the writing or what looks like writing on the stones?
Well, if you look across the road, there's a real estate agent, and one lady that used to work there, she come into the shop when I was running the art shop, and she said there'd been two guys over looking at these rocks, and she said they were not of this earth.
Wow.
They are quite interesting, and Jules, I'm just wondering why you're there. If you could possibly go down a little bit further and show how they've tried to blend it in by putting new stone further down the hill so that people can't see it, because I found that quite interesting. It's almost like they've tried to hide the fact that wall is now. But there were some that came from the sandstone quarry, which is close, which were newer rocks, and some that were done from there. And I like to think that they did it out of recycling and not ignorance. However, I do think it's ignorance, but I still like to think it was recycling and using products that were already made possibly.
Hi, Trina.
Yeah, those
Trina's
rocks
here.
are old.
Welcome,
Hi, Trina.
Hi, Trina.
Good to have you with
I
us.
just looked over and saw our angel sitting over there.
Yeah, crazy technical difficulties.
That looks like writing.
Yeah.
That looks like writing right there.
Right there.
See that line going straight through? That looks like Ogam or Oam, Ogham writing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Except that I'm not conversant in Oam, but I'm sure somebody is, and I believe that this should be analyzed.
Well, they did analyze it, Dalibor. That the architect that came in with a team did date it back to something like more than 15,000 years old, I believe. And then going back to almost as far as 20,000 or more. So the thing is that what they're saying is they don't know where they came from. They assume it was the Aborigines, the original inhabitants of the land prior to the Aborigines, and that they had these small worship temples all throughout Australia. And these people in the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s wanted to repurpose the materials, but they compared these to some of the monolithic sites like is it Machu Picchu?
Yes.
And a couple of other places. Yeah. And go ahead, Mandy.
Sorry, they look exactly like the 17 granite rocks found at Toowoomba with petroglyphs on them too. They have the similar striping markings and they're quite big as well. But then the rock doesn't seem right for the area. So Gympie, I believe, is mainly sandstone, jasper. So if this is granite, that means that they've come from a fair. How far away from the granite belt are you, Jules?
Oh gosh. We went there last time we were away, and it was like 6 hours drive or something.
So, and Australia's hot, even in summer. Like our summer is a lot of people's winter. Like, so yeah, it's too hot to be dragging rocks that far when you don't have the proper equipment.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that would be arduous.
Hey, David, Audrey, Delaney, good to see you. You pagans. Kelly. So the other thing that he noticed, the architect that visited this site, you see how these stones are put together? Jules, see if you can find one of the really small ones in that rock wall. This is a technique that was used by megalithic builders to handle the stress between the rocks so that if there was an earthquake or any kind of disturbance, the vibration of the stones would be distributed. So the fact that these people in the 1800s, they didn't know this type of construction. What happened is the Aborigines did, though. And they were the ones that actually were doing this for the settlers.
Yeah, see, to me, this is definitely megalithic construction, except that unlike the classical marshmallow stones, these have faces that are relatively smooth, which indicates to me that these were already at some point in the past rearranged and formed into like a consistent surface. And then once they took it apart to make this wall in the 1800s, they probably rearranged it, but not exactly the way it was originally meant to.
Right.
Which means they preserved some of the arrangement, but not all of it. But yeah. Which means they were basically reassembling a jigsaw puzzle, but the fact that it has that consistent smooth side in the front is way more than they would have done for something like a wine terrace or growing grapes, because the only purpose of terracing in agriculture is if you have uneven terrain, which you don't have in that area. In that area, if some Greek farmer wanted to like grow grapes, all he had to do was plant them. Yeah. And they would grow because there's no problems with soil erosion or anything like that. So that
soil in that area isn't really suited for grape growth, and So can you please, Jules, could just, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But just from what I've spoken to with some of the people you've put me in touch with, and also some of the other people I've been in touch with over here, they've said to me that Gully Creek, with the flat area to the either side, had Aboriginal occupation. However, the Aboriginal people would not go near the ancient Gympie pyramid. The Aboriginal people would not go near it. And from my understanding, they had nothing to do with the bringing back of the stones, because they would not go near this site.
That's right. They wouldn't go near there. I was told that by my
that leads me to believe that maybe, since Dalibor and you and me, we're all seeing the same thing here, and the folks in chat, could it be that what they actually did was build inside of that wall, their new church? That wall was
there is something underneath the ground of that church, and it says that they've put something underneath the ground of that church.
That's what I was thinking.
There is, because just the fact that we're talking about this, last week I was in the creative shop and a lady's thinking of renting this church, and she goes, there's hidden things under the floor.
Sacred sites tend to get recycled, and there's ample evidence of that all over Europe, where if they dig underneath the church, they find like Celtic ruins. If they dig beneath them, there's something even older. So, you know,
ancient Greece has tons of redone sites.
And
I'm curious. I've got to ask, Jules, do you have any water with you? Do you have water?
Yeah, but it's back at the car though. I'll walk down the car.
Okay. If I was thinking on some of those rocks that have the markings, if you could pour some water on that, it'll allow us to see that much better in more detail.
Righto. I'll just
possible.
go out. I'll go out and come back in, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Just mute your mic when you're walking through the town for us,
There
Jules.
we go. I got it.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Well, I'm definitely happy to, next time I'm up there, take photographer, like my friend who's a photographer with me has the proper camera equipment, and get some photos for Dalibor if you want, and I can actually and show you the exact I'm also quite interested to sort of sneak into the Gympie pyramid site, because this is the other interesting thing is, so in 2008, so they're about to build a road through the Gympie pyramid site, which people like Graham Hancock have even drawn attention to, trying to get it stopped. So in 2008, the people who owned the road, which is the Queensland Department of Transport, decided that they should pay for people to have it checked out. And they found that there was nothing there and it's okay for them to build the road. That's like me selling you a house and going, my mate Barry checked it out. He said it's fine. Like, you're going to get your own inspection still. So it's quite frustrating there, and there's none of the political leaders or really interested in even listening. And some of the people that have actually tried to do this research have said to me, like, it's cost them a lot. They've had people completely try and discredit them and ruin their entire life's work just from some of the stuff that they're trying to bring up. And some of the things that were found at the ancient Gympie pyramid site also include a statue, as well as some of the artifacts. So one of the first artifacts we found there was a Chinese jade belt. So the Chinese also came here as well, but this was we're looking at the period of around 1400 AD for that. And in 2 to 3 meters under the surface, though, there was a bronze urn found with Greek Egyptian. So the cross between the Greek and Egyptian, I'm not sure what that's called. Carvings and inscriptions on this bronze urn, and that was 2 to 3 meters under the ground.
Wow.
So I find that quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Demotic script. That's what was that was actually instrumental in deciphering the Rosetta Stone, which was that crossover between Egyptian hieroglyphs and Greek text.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's quite significant. You know, the fact that it has Greek and Egyptian text on it. That says everything.
I think Australia is just about one of the is one of the most significant outposts And
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's an outpost of at this point.
Well, the fact that they're trying to build a road through it shows that just looks like a cover-up. I mean,
yeah.
Don't tell me that they can't move the road like 100 meters to the left or to the right. You know.
There actually are. I heard yesterday that the actual road's going round it because my daughter's father-in-law's working on the bridge gang with it, and it's being shifted or going round it. It's not going over it.
It still feels like they're trying to change the energy line or whatever energy line is running through there. They're trying to disrupt
It'll be
that.
like, it's okay. It's okay. It's divine, whatever it's meant to be, okay? So watch this.
Oh, there you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
That's what let me pull this up. That's what I was curious about. Sometimes it magnifies it, cleans it up a little. Wow.
That's pretty deep.
It looks like Roman numerals, though, like XIV.
I see that.
Like I said, it could be OM.
See the ones up top to the left?
Yeah, X.
Yeah, X.
With an X.
Interesting.
Definitely. See, OM was always written above or below. It was a series of slash marks made above and below a straight line, a horizontal line, and you have horizontal lines with symbols above and below them all over the place, all over those stones.
They're fine pieces of quartz in there. This looks solid, but there's a line of little fine crystals through there.
So I'm just curious, what happens if we look at it under UV light?
Ooh, I like that, Mandy.
That's
a
very original idea. Yes.
And then infrared.
Actually, guys, what I'm going to do now is drive to the museum so I can show you the Thoth statue because my battery's not going to run out because I'm okay.
Yeah.
So you go on with the rest of the show and then I'll turn up at the museum.
Awesome.
Okay, I like
you,
your
Jill.
hat. I like your hat.
You're an amazing online live field
Indiana
reporter.
Jones.
Yes, our field reporter.
Well, I was gonna dress up, but things happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
You got to go with the flow.
That's it. Go with the flow.
So as Jill said, there was a gorilla statue also brought up at this site, but I'll let her get into it when she's actually there and she can show you. So from some of the people I spoke to, so they're saying that this is Ptolemy III that came over. Yes, not so. A lot of places try and throw it off and say it was the Ptolemy IV because they say there was a Ptolemy IV coin found. However, I don't believe it was a Ptolemy IV coin, especially seeing as Ptolemy III was known as a great king. He went and explored new places within the Aegean Sea and made his way all the way to what we call Bulgaria today. So he was and also not only just as well as like exploration with sea, he also made it all the way to Babylon on land, just marching his soldiers. So he was known as the great king, and he was also known as the wealthy king, where Ptolemy IV was really not as much of a good ruler, and there was a lot of civil unrest in Egypt at the time. So it just doesn't make sense that he would have really had time to be seafaring and things like that. But so the ancient gold map of Ptolemy III actually shows Australia, and that's in a museum in Egypt. I'll need to find out exactly where that is.
Could you bring up that? Could you bring up that coin that was found?
The slides. He wants to see the slides. Yeah.
I had a look at that coin, and I have something to say about that. Now, at first glance, since there is no back to it, it's only the obverse and not the reverse, and it's made of bronze. To me, that doesn't look like a coin. That looks like a medallion. In other words, a coin would have two sides, not just one. And at first glance, it looks exactly like a St. Christopher medallion, which would theoretically, St. Christopher was born in the 3rd century or so, but it has all the attributes of it. Namely, it shows a man in a ship rowing with large waves around the ship at the bottom. So,
I
and
see that.
that is, if you look up any Christopher medallion, he's the patron saint of travelers. And usually travelers will carry this medallion with them for good luck. And like I said, since it has no backside, it's most likely a medallion and not a coin.
It's not possible. Be
Although
some type of button, could it?
No, it's not a button because it would have holes in the back. See, the thing is, just because Saint Christopher dates to only the 3rd century, doesn't mean that Saint Christopher isn't based on something much older than that. In other words, it's an archetype. It's a spiritual archetype of, a saint who lived a certain life. His text followed a certain script. And as a result, he became the patron saint of travelers. So that's exactly what
now,
that looks like.
Dalibor, Mandy showed me today on her computer a bunch of coins that are from the different Ptolemies, and they look just like this. They look exactly like this.
It could be a coin. Yes, it could be a coin
I just Googled the medallion, and it does look very similar to a medallion. Like, yes.
Okay.
Because I hadn't have thought of a medallion.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Some of them had holes drilled in them, Dalibor, so that means they would wear them like medallions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that explain the crack to the side?
Yeah, I see it.
Well, not necessarily. See, the thing is, usually a medallion is meant to be worn, which means that the design will be upright when the coin is rotated left to right. Whereas on a coin, the design stays upright only when you rotate the coin top to bottom.
It could have been inlaid into something as well. So it could have been worn in an inlay and not just separate.
Could be.
That's possible.
It wouldn't have smooth edges. It wouldn't have smooth edges because that shows to me that it was stamped and that it had a collared die, which means that something round was placed around it, and then the design was hammered in with a die.
What do you think about what's in the middle of it there? There seems to be something in the middle of it. It's very
probably
small.
I see it. It's probably just a manufacturing defect of some kind, or discoloration. Because if it's bronze, it's going to oxidize exactly that way. It's gonna turn eventually. It's going to turn completely black. If it's been exposed to salt, it's going to turn slightly different colors. Usually bronze coins do turn this type of shade of olive greenish black. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
After how long do they turn that color? Sorry.
It depends entirely on how extreme the conditions they're exposed to. Like if it's exposed to heat, like let's say somebody's carrying it around in their pocket and they're touching it, that means it's exposed to the fat in the secretions of your hand. It's exposed to cotton fibers inside your pocket and heat from the body. Then it's going to age much quicker. It's going to turn black much quicker.
So this particular coin was found in 1912 under some soil by a gold miner, and it was in Cairns. So it's very hot up there, very, very hot. It wasn't very far under the surface.
I know where Cairns is. Yeah, that would be since it's further north. That's like the tropical area of Australia. For people who would know that. Yeah.
So Crystal has joined us, and Brandy's in there. I see they joined us. Hi, you guys, gals. Okay, so Mandy, are you doing this slide by slide, or are you gonna? Okay.
All right, so let me go ahead and pull that up for you.
Let's pull up Mandy and I were working together, and you know how this soul tribe keeps finding synchronicities between people all the time?
Yeah.
Well, we both have an Australian cattle dog named Ruby.
Oh my
we just spell it slightly different, and you could see Mandy's is smiling. Mandy's dog smiles. Ruby does not. So, and also she told me a story about how the cattle dogs, the dingoes, are not indigenous to Australia, and they're found also in Egypt and somewhere in Asia, right, Mandy?
Yeah. If you look at your dog, Theresa, look at the ears. That's definitely what you see in ancient Egypt with the.
Yeah.
He looks like
Oh, no,
like
and you
Anubis.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. What are you saying, Mandy?
Sorry, so the way Ruby sits is like that like the Egyptian, the way the Egyptian dog sat, and her ears always perked up. And yes,
Yeah.
Egyptian does have a very similar form of red dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I had a test done on her, and she's almost all dingo.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
There we go, Mandy. There you go.
Okay, so the picture on the left is just a sample picture pulled off Google of an ancient Egyptian ship, and the picture on the right, and I've still got a 100% confirmed location of this. I do know it is Aboriginal rock art, and I believe it's from Northern Territory. So, and that's just to show the similarities of the ships, because they were very unique ships, the Egyptian ships. Can you go to the next slide?
You bet.
It's interesting that both of them show 9 people, 9 figures inside the ship.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about
1, 2,
that.
3, 4, 5. Oh, you're right.
And
Yep.
now that you mentioned that, I'm also seeing on the front of that, there's a little circle. So at the front of the ship, so the way that the ship arcs up, and then there's a circle. But yes.
Yeah.
It is slightly different. However, the arcing of the ship more goes towards so yeah, we'll go to the next slide because that will more show the arcings of the ship. There we go.
There we go.
Now this is actually I got this from Mandy because we wanted to show the similarities. This is actually a tomb in Egypt of an Egyptian king much later in the dynasty period, but I forget his name. It's so long I can't even pronounce it. I can look it up for folks though. But you see the style of ship. They actually have that in a couple of locations in these rock walls in Australia, so you can tell they're pretty much the same. So how now, Mandy? This is where this particular rock wall, it has all the ships on it in Australia.
Yes.
Some of those, it looks to me, and I was telling Scotty Roberts about this the other day because I made a phone call to him and I was just chatting with him. And I was telling him about this, and I mentioned it to him. The wall itself has ancient carvings that go way, way back. And there are pigments and paintings of ships from various parts of the world on the Australian rock wall. But the thing is, and they're at different times. They were painted at different times over the years. I'm talking hundreds of years. So you have this Egyptian ship painting over a turtle carving that goes back somewhat, was it, Mandy, 15, 20,000 years? The carving itself was something like that. And then the painting on top of that blended in with some of that. And then the other paintings for the other ships were later in time, all the way up to 17th century and 18th century sailing vessels. So think about this, folks. They're using it like an archive to report visitors to their lands over thousands of years. So it had to have been some kind of tradition or ritual that when somebody came to visit, they painted, the ship that visited them, because they're not all from the same time period, and the pigments in the paints are some are much older than others. Yet you'll get these archaeologists, they'll go in there and they're trying to say, oh no, this is from this bunch of people in the 1800s decided to paint all these ships. I'm like, what would be the purpose? And you're showing that you're doing tests, you're doing geological tests, and you're finding out that they're all from a different period of time, and the pigment, that's the key. It's the pigmentation in how it's embedded into the stone and how old the wall is itself.
You can date the pigmentation. Yeah. You can't date the stone, but you can date the pigmentation.
And the type of ship. If you go back to the ship slide, well, you don't have to, Laurie, but that ship was actually a solar ship. That's Ptolemy 3, right, Dalibor? In 246 BC.
200 BC, yeah.
Because Ptolemy, was it Ptolemy 3 or 2 that was responsible for constructing these sun ships, the solar ship?
The solar ship was Khufu.
Khufu, okay. But still, that puts it at prior to 200 BC, doesn't it, or about that?
So Khufu was actually many, many, many years prior. So Khufu
was like 2,500 BC.
Proto-Egyptian.
Yeah,
Proto-Egyptian.
Yes. And then I believe that something happened which stopped them from getting here because then there was no contact for such a long time. And then is there another slide there with the ships on it? Because we have something similar in Australia where it's a wall and some of the some of the arts found on the rock are 3,000. So there's 3,000 pictures. Some of them are up to 15,000 years old. And so that's the Gympie one. There's one with a ship on it.
Yeah, we don't have that one. Remember?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, we kept looking for it. We couldn't find it. You have it in your notes somewhere.
But it does kind of, this next slide does get into where Jules is right now, and that looks the same. So let me blow this up for you.
There she is. There's Jules.
That's interesting. So what's the story on this?
That's a Gympie ape.
Thoth.
There we go.
It's they call it Thoth.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
The Gympie ape.
So that's it there. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the slides that Mandy was showing were World War II photos of the Gympie Pyramid site when it was rediscovered during World War II. And it's showing aerial views of Gympie and the ape.
Yep, looks
which is monolithic carving. It's proto-Egyptian. It's proto.
The ape is dated at around 2000. There's discussion. Some people are saying 800 years, and other people say 2,000 years. But either way, 800 years or 2,000 years ago, we didn't have a zoo here, and we didn't have primates. We didn't have apes, monkeys, gorillas. Just fun fact about Australia.
Wow.
It actually says 3,000 years on this piece of information.
Yeah, they keep coming out with these different dates, and it's like,
it's still incredible.
Yeah.
See, what I'm seeing with that is the crossed arms. The crossed arms that the Egyptian pharaohs would adopt as their traditional pose. That is totally atypical for something Australian or South Pacific, because in the South Pacific, typically gods would have the so-called tiki pose, which means one arm above their heart and one arm on their stomach, whereas this has both arms crossed above their chest.
There was also a similar statue found near the pyramid in Cairns as well.
Yes, that is definitely anthropomorphic.
David Knoll is in the chat room. Hey, brother David Hawkeye. He says, not all of us are actually human, Dalibor. We are hybrids of different kinds.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is that what I'm seeing here, though, if you look at that World War II photos of Gympie, of the pyramid, and we know that these stones are part of the quarry or similar to the ones in town that Jules just showed us, that predate 800 years. They're older than 2,000 years. What in the world is the ape doing showing up that many thousands of years later at this site?
Besides, apes don't have heads that are that big in relation to the body. That's a human.
Is it a baboon? The baboon is also a depiction of the Thoth.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the way it's sitting too. That's how apes sit. Their knees come up real high. Yep.
But Thoth is also sometimes symbolized as an ape.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, he's also symbolized as an ape as well, and that's one thing I found quite interesting.
Yeah.
Don't you guys think it looks a little bit like Easter Island?
Yes, it does.
Similar.
Yeah, I'm saying that too.
Yep, very similar.
What if that's a Neanderthal? Could that be an image of Neanderthal?
It could be. That is not out of the question. Yeah, that is not out of the question.
They look kind of ape-like. You know, they have a different jawline, and
that's
they look
true.
a little. I wonder if they said Neanderthal had a much larger brain, they were stronger, and that was because of the bone mass. And I wonder if
short and
could
stocky.
potentially be a Neanderthal.
And since we don't have any examples of Neanderthal sculpture, we don't know what they really look like. We only know what their bones look like. So, if that's what they would have portrayed themselves as looking, then that kind of makes sense. It definitely merits more analysis. Yeah.
I wonder if it's the pygmy people. So Australians were also known to have a pygmy race of people that died off.
Yes.
There you go.
I wonder if that was a cousin of a Neanderthal. I really do think that when the Neanderthal was here, we might have had multiple variations, like we have humans with different, races. I think that could have been a potential as well.
See, skeletally, the Neanderthals were different from modern humans in that modern humans have 32 teeth, but the Neanderthals all had 36 teeth. In other words, they had extra 4 wisdom teeth, and they also, instead of having triangular forearm bones and leg bones, they have perfectly round bones. Which, if you feel your hand, you can feel that it's sharp over here. That's because it's not round; it's actually triangular shaped. So, and same with your legs. So that's why they were stockier, and that's why their bones were stronger.
Yeah. Interesting. It's just really interesting, the timing of this. So there's a megalithic society in Australia that predates Pro-Egyptian, and they were visited later on by the Pro-Egyptian, and then thousands of years later again from the Egyptians. I think they were mining for gold. I think,
well, we don't really know what they were mining for, because look at it this way. They found traces of cocaine inside the Egyptian mummies, which means that they didn't have a hard time getting to South America. Like, keep in mind that back then, the Suez Canal had not been constructed. So getting from Egypt, getting from Cairo to Australia would have meant going around the entire continent of Africa, all the way around and over to Australia. Now, I'm thinking if they went to South America, they could have just gone the extra couple of miles. Well, it's not a couple of miles, it's a couple of thousand miles, and hit Australia, and then come back, because who knows what the white powder of gold was really all about. Maybe it really was cocaine.
Yeah.
Who knows?
What you showing us,
that makes sense. Like, so they got on a coke bender and they're like, how the hell did we end up here?
Really.
Yeah.
So this goes, just one of the people I was speaking to said that Ptolemy III wanted to know where to get the gold. So where to get the gold. So I'm wondering if this is the gold because Australian gold has been found in Egypt. So I'm wondering if this is the gold that was found during this. So the 2 sons of Khufu are said to believe to have come over here, and one of them died. This is believed. And so he wanted to know where the gold was. So he hired a man or a Phoenician astronomer? Maybe they were this. And he was given 10 ships. They sailed through the Nile, somewhere else, the Atlantic, went to New Guinea.
Did you notice the crossed staffs back there?
Yeah, I thought I saw that in the hallway. You just passed a hallway, and on the wall,
the crossed staffs.
Yes.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Whoa.
That's just like the crook and the flail that the Egyptians had, the royal symbol.
Wow.
There you go. I just got chills.
Uh-huh.
I'm in an old building that's full of crystals. They're probably sourced from all over the place, but it's full of the old town. This is our main town. So this is Mary Street, and that's where they first started mining the gold. And they laid the street because it was a creek, and they laid the whole street down on top of the creek bed, and it floods really easy because it's a creek, you see. And so this is the main street here. This is the old architecture.
Wow.
Anyway, so I'm actually not far from one of the mines that they used to mine gold from. Like, this is called the Gympie Gold Museum. So we're right on the actual gold mines. They've got the shafts and everything around in this whole area.
Wow.
So,
that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to love and leave you folks because my battery's nearly flat.
Okay.
Thank you for the boots on the ground
Yes.
scores there.
Thank you
Is that
so much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you
That
so
was
much,
awesome.
man.
Look at that amethyst.
Look at
I'm
that
telling
amethyst.
ya.
My
Wow.
God.
Mhm.
Australia
That's
is
energy
so
right there.
rich in minerals.
No, it's actually Brazilian, of course, because Brazil has the best amethyst.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, bye,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jules. We love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was nice of her.
Yes, it was.
Sorry, Mandy. We just
Mhm.
all Dalibor saw that cross and was like, whoa.
Yeah.
No,
we
no,
did.
that's all right. That was a really important thing, especially if you saw that, because these symbolisms that are hidden within things that are just hidden in plain sight are so relevant and so important, and people don't realize they, like for me, like I was reading, but most people would just walk past and not even put the
Exactly,
symbols
because
together.
what is that doing in a museum like that? Because that is clearly an Egyptian symbol. That is not like a cane that a shepherd would use,
No.
to retrieve like a sheep or something. That is not anything to do with Australia or even sheep herding or anything. That's what is that doing
Makes
there?
you wonder if the Egyptians were using Australia as an outpost.
Yes.
They were
That
definitely
makes
going
sense.
there, and
Yeah.
the gold question is not out of the question because
Mhm.
Australia still has gold to this very day that's being mined there.
Well, Mandy's got a little bit more evidence here. It gets better. Keep going, Mandy. Keep going.
Australia is known as AU. We're AU. What's AU? Gold.
Gold. Yeah, you're right.
It's
Yep.
we are full of gold. Plus, we still have something called Lassiter's Reef, which is apparently a cave of gold that some guy went to the desert 5 times and ended up dying in there trying to find this cave of gold again. We are just so full of gold. So, from what somebody told me I was speaking to, he said that they came down in New Guinea. They had a ship sink in New Guinea, and they left they left the fleet there, and evidence can be found from inscriptions within a New Guinea cave. Then they followed down to the Pacific.
Whoa.
They went to Chile. They couldn't find passage through, and went back to Fiji. And the natives had killed and sunk the crew of 3 of the ships. So then they were down to 4 ships. So this is the Ptolemy ships, but then there was also Chinese junk ships as well. So China also came here in the 1400s, and they also called it a city of gold as well. So
and
it's
the South Americans also had a legend of El Dorado, which was the city of gold. Who knows if that wasn't really Australia? Because because it's in the southern hemisphere, that's kind of a hop, skip, and a jump from South America. In other words, it's closer to South America than it is to Europe.
Right.
Yeah. Even the as Theresa said before, even the petroglyphs from Australia to Easter Island are so similar. It's not funny. So there's a big link there as well. And not because I do know that the Egyptians went some of these fleets made it to these places. So that was the astronomer, and his name was Maury, and this is how they believe. So Maori became a big word in New Zealand and actually started the Māori, so the Maori people, because they're completely different genetics and things like that. But that's just all to do with gold. And even some of the Australian Aboriginals were founded to have gold earrings. So these gold earrings, and it's actually why they were herded off Double Island Point, and a lot of the slaughters were done. So what's the next one I have to get to? Sorry.
This is more modern day photographs of Gympie and other pyramids. You have more than one pyramid.
Yes.
Right. Wow.
Yes. So Ballad, I can't even pronounce that name. But yes, just on the Queensland, New South Wales border, about 2 hours inland. So you've got the pyramid that's on the left, the one at the far right the top right of the corner, I believe, is Cairns, and I believe that other one at the bottom is the Gympie pyramid, is it?
Yes.
Oh, so the one on the bottom is the Gympie pyramid.
Yes, it is. It's just that at the time they didn't have deforestation. They've allowed it to grow over like a jungle now.
Right.
You can't even get to it.
Huh.
That's one view of it. The other view of it is in the upper left-hand corner, where you can see how the stones were laid and structured in step fashion.
Well, it certainly looks Egyptian, exactly how an Egyptian pyramid would be constructed. That it's laid out almost identical.
Well, the architect that did the study that I shared with Mandy, that video, he was saying that he and his team got in there, and they have declared, now get this, they have declared that because it lacks any of the similarities to the internal structure of any of the pyramids in Egypt, it's not truly a pyramid. Yet, others have gone there and done tests to show that there is frequency and there is sound, vibration, anything that's constructed in the shape of a pyramid. And Dalibor can speak to that. But you can't just discount this and say it's not a pyramid because it lacks the king chamber.
Right.
Yeah. That makes no sense. That's like discovering a house on Mars and saying it's not a real house because it doesn't have a kitchen.
Exactly. Just because it lacks some of the internal structures that some of the pyramids doesn't mean it's still not a pyramid.
Yeah.
Can they actually access the inside of it, or is the inside solid?
Well, that's what they're saying. They're saying there's no hollows inside of this pyramid, whereas the ones in Egypt all have chambers and rooms and stuff.
How do we know that it doesn't go deep into the ground?
Well, see, the Bosnian pyramid
falls into a ziggurat.
The Bosnian pyramid has chambers, but only underneath it, and those have the same layout as the Great Pyramid and some of the other Egyptian pyramids. So, it doesn't necessarily have to have internal structures. The ones in Mexico also don't have internal structures. They're usually at the bottom of the pyramid, all the way underneath it.
Yeah. And the other thing is that even if that were the case, that doesn't have the exact same. Neither do some of the older pyramids in Egypt. I mean, there was an evolution of skill. It was an evolution of how they built them and constructed them. If we're talking about Proto-Egyptian,
right,
then this being a Proto-Egyptian outpost, where they merged their Proto-Egyptian society with whatever monolithic society had been there previously, that makes total sense to me. Now, it's speculation.
Egypt.
But my God, how much more proof do you need?
It does, but when you look at it, the construction of the pyramids, they evolved from ziggurats, and ziggurats evolved from mastabas, and a mastaba was basically just a like a parallelogram built above the ground. It was just like a polygon, and that structure surrounding the church in Gympie, that kind of looks like a mastaba that they built a church in the middle of, almost.
Oh, that's interesting.
And a mastaba being basically just a one-stepped pyramid. Originally, they were theorized as being grave sites or burial sites, but that's never been proven because they buried their dead like in the Valley of the Kings and not inside any of the pyramids. In fact, none of the pyramids has ever been found to contain any body.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what happens energetically if you change the pyramid shape to a dome shape?
Well,
that's what they've done on top of the church.
It doesn't have any kind of effect because with the experiments that I did, I didn't use a dome shape as a control structure. I used a box, a regular cardboard box as my control structure that had like roughly the same volume as the pyramid that I had built. So I really don't know. Although some people have said that if you construct the same angle but a tollus being like a cone shape with that same angle, that it'll have similar effects to the pyramid. In other words, it has an effect on tachyons coming in from the sun, and you can observe changes in centripetal acceleration, conservation of angular momentum, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So but as to your question, why do churches use that strange shape? Like for example, in the Kremlin in Russia, where they have those onion balls on top of the church. Why do a lot of these church steeples have like a dome structure above them? I don't know. I think it could be for some kind of resonance because you definitely do get a resonant effect. When they sing hymns beneath it, the sound rises and it reverberates inside it, creating some interesting interference effects. I don't know. I haven't looked into it,
I
I
don't know
must
if this
admit.
would make any sense to either one of you, but I keep hearing it's circling the square.
The Philosopher's Stone, circle square.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I keep hearing
Philosopher's Stone.
Philosopher's Stone,
Yeah,
As
that
a
would
matter of
be
fact,
it.
So, and then do you want to get on to, and I know Dalibor's really going to like this one. Can we get on to the really good stuff now?
Yes, but I just have one more comment about these pyramids. There's at least 3 that I'm aware of in Australia, right? And they're in a certain alignment with one another, just like the pyramids in Egypt.
Orion's Belt.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to take these archaeologists, give them the boot, because they don't know what the frick they're talking about. And I'm a lay person, and I'm not even a professional archaeologist. What do they think, we're stupid? And they've built an Air Force base. They've built an Air Force base over one of those locations, right?
Wow.
Completely taking control of that energy. Yeah, didn't they build an Air Force base over one of the energy?
Pine Gap is an army base, and it's actually, so it's the American army base in Australia, and it's actually on 3 intersecting ley lines.
Wow.
You getting me, Trina? There's something going on here.
Yeah, and a lot of them are. So
I know that the Americans have also built a HARP base in Australia. But there's one in Gakona, Alaska, and there's also another HARP installation in, I believe it's Pine Gap, Australia.
You getting this? Oh man, I'm getting this. All right, let's get to the juicy stuff.
Get this. There's a pyramid in Alaska too. It's in a place called Unalaska.
Yeah.
Unalaska?
Yep.
Yeah, it's Unalaska. It's called Unalaska, and it's at the very tip of the Aleutian Islands, which is that chain of islands that goes like in an arc away from Australia towards Russia. At the very end, you have an island called Unalaska, and there's a pyramid there called Pyramid Hill. Except that when I tried getting some convincing looking images of it, there's not a whole lot of them. But it's been called Pyramid Hill for the past 2 centuries since it's been inhabited, and it's definitely, from some angles, it definitely looks like a pyramid.
Wow.
Although it's difficult to confirm using like Google Earth or Google Maps or anything like that.
Right. Well, we got some more to show you on that.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Let me pull this up for you.
So this is a site called Gosford, and there are ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs found there, a lot of them. And this is said to be the ancient burial site. So they said that the 2 sons came here and that one of them was bitten by a snake and killed. And that's a pretty believable story. This is Australia. Chances of that in the bush. Yeah, and these Egyptian hieroglyphs, now they're trying to say that somebody carved them in the early 1800s. Now, from the rock that it's made out of, and as to the wearing around the stone, it doesn't really look like something that was carved only 200 years ago.
Look how much wear and tear is on those edges. There's a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, it's incredible.
A lot of weathering.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones that have a lot of similarities. So is there the Anubis one?
Yeah, go to the next slide. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
On the right is a tablet from Egypt. And
the other one is the Gosford glyphs.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Now look at what he has in his hand. They're both got the key. They're holding the Ankh.
That's the Ankh, and the Ankh is actually not so much a key, but it's a sandal strap.
Ah, okay. I was wondering what it was. I've always thought it was a key.
Yeah, no, it's a sandal strap.
Do you see the skirt? The bib on the skirt is the same. This would have to be an impeccable, somebody would really have to know what they were doing to fake it. And the dating of it, of all these glyphs go back how far, Mandy? They were talking about dating it back to more than 15,000 years.
She's muted.
Mandy's
She's
muted.
muted.
Okay. So anyway,
some of the ship paintings, they have dated at up to 20,000 years old. Sorry. However, no one can get a definitive date on these Gosford glyphs because there's a lot of, they're trying to throw a lot of people off when it comes to the dating. As I said, they tried to say that it's was carved by early settlers in the 1800s, which just doesn't seem right. So it's really hard to get dates on these glyphs.
Right. Yeah, the carvings themselves, these aren't paintings, these are actually carved into the stone. They've dated the stone and the intersection lines of where the carving marks were made in the article that I was reading to 15 to 20,000 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So because they took the geological, they took those striations in the rock.
Mm-hmm.
And they did the geological testing, and they apologized to the guy that found this, and they had accused him at first of faking stuff, and they've apologized to him since then. They're pulling it together into a documentary that'll be available soon, but for now, they're keeping it pretty quiet in terms of the detail. But there's more of these. Go ahead to the next one. There you go.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, this is Mandy figured this one out. Tell them about it, Mandy.
Wow.
She muted again?
Yep.
This is the Australian peregrine falcon, and I like how you've got the dingo in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay,
in the actual Egyptian hieroglyphs, they show the dingo, but the peregrine falcon. So the one on the left is the a peregrine falcon, Australian peregrine falcon, and then you've also got these glyphs down the bottom, which are the Gosford glyphs. And then the ones off to the to the right are the ones found in Egypt.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the peregrine falcon is not indigenous to Australia? Or do I have it the other way around?
I'm not entirely sure on that. I just know that it looks a lot different to any other falcons that we sort of get over here. The other falcons we get over here aren't as big, and they're all a lighter color.
Most of those symbols on that rock, like 3 of those symbols are in my name when I translate my name into Egyptian. So
You're
I'm
kidding.
certain that no. So that's definitely probably literally readable. Those are probably letters, because I know the falcon is, and the oval thing and the snake looking thing, and those are all letters. Every single one of those are letters. I don't know about the dingo and the other thing at the top. Those are the only 2 that I haven't seen on the Egyptian hieroglyphic translation tablets.
Wow.
So
now, someone has translated these, Trina. Somebody has taken the time to tell the story and translate it. Mandy has the book. And every single one of these carvings has been, each one of them tells a story.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to read them. I just haven't had time, but.
Yeah, and I'm also wanting to go down and confirm from people that have actually studied that I have my information correct. So I'm wanting to back up from more than one source and hopefully get to speak to some of these people that have been studying it for 45 years plus and get, just to make sure I have my information correct too before but I'm happy to send it through if you want to have a look at the information I have found on the translation of all the Gosford glyphs.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's the thing, Trina. Again, they translated them. So they were using the Egyptian model to translate them. So again.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I'm like, that's definitely, Egyptian. I've seen the alphabet that goes with those pictures. So I'm like.
And the thing is, they suspected that they were a forgery because the Gosford glyphs included glyphs that were not discovered at that time, and they only discovered them decades later in Egypt when they discovered a new tomb and they discovered the new symbols. So that proves that could not have been forged.
No,
and that's I didn't even know about that. And so this is a statue that was found in a university professor's basement, essentially. They said that he brought it over from Egypt and hadn't studied it. However, the Gosford glyphs depict a king that died. And I've noticed that this tomb is made out of, it's not like a regular Egyptian tomb that you would see if it was made in Egypt from its
Looks
materials.
like it's made out of wood.
Or
some type
clay.
of wood. Oh.
Yeah, it looks made of wood, yeah.
And this is just not what you would find. However, they had said that there was like I said, there was that king that had been bitten by a snake and had died, and the Gosford glyphs actually talk about a burial site being close by. And now Gosford's about 50 kilometres away from Sydney. So there's not much. It would be nice and easy to transport this down there nice and quietly so nobody else knew about it. But I just found this one very interesting. And even if we jump to the next.
Can you read that block there? It says, during the physical examination, Dr. Lord made another important discovery. The resin that he poured into the mummy's skull after its brain was removed. She said the cast is similar to one found inside of a coffin of one of the most famous mummies ever discovered, Tutankhamun.
Yep.
And in Tutankhamun's tomb, is that where they found the Australian marsupial bones?
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
And so even the X-rays and everything of it, I haven't compared it to any Egyptian ones yet, but it seems like I said, it's just funny that they hadn't found this. It had been just sitting there for 150 years, just happened to be sitting there.
Yeah. Now the article that came with this, I read part of it, Mandy, and you asked me to, and I took a closer look at it, and what the bottom line for the people that were doing the analysis on this so far is that the materials that were used, the way they think that the body was prepared for burial, doesn't match up with quite the way Egyptians went about it. So there's two paths here. If it was from Australia and found in a location in Australia, such as the Rock Cliff area, then it might be that the people that were interacting with the Proto-Egyptians did the best they could to mimic, out of respect, an Egyptian burial.
Also,
I mean, that's really going out on a limb, but that's possible, right, Dalibor?
Also, being in Australia, they would have lacked the same ingredients that they would have needed to perform a real mummification process like they would in Egypt.
Yes.
Because they were using materials that would have been local to Egypt. And, if you go to a different area where you can't source that same material, or you don't have the right experts with you, because don't forget, in ancient Egyptian times, mummification was regarded as a national security secret. It was a national security thing.
The priestess, and the priest could have that.
Which means that expeditionary force that landed in Australia would not have included like a mummification expert, probably.
No, but there were two brothers that were together. The one was killed, but the snake, maybe he told everybody how to go about preparing this body as best they could.
Yeah,
right.
And
to bury his brother.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these are the original MacGyvers. They just worked with what they had within their environment and tried to do their best.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Work with what you got, man.
It's all speculation. I'm just saying it's just kind of makes sense, but put it out there, something to think about.
Guys, I believe that when we put our heads together and we just try to figure stuff out, I believe that we're on to probably a lot of truth.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
And it's also not out of the question that even somebody like a visiting king, would have stepped onto a poisonous spider in Australia, because you don't have poisonous spiders in Egypt. So that would have been an unusual thing. In Australia, basically everything is poisonous. And they would have not been used to that.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not poisonous, it bites you. I've still got a swollen finger from a wasp bite.
Oh, wow.
It's horrible. Everything's out to kill us.
You have poisonous jellyfish, poisonous snails, poisonous insects, snakes, octopuses, jellyfish. absolutely everything over there, which is which is really unusual. So they would have not been prepared for that kind of thing. I'll give you an example. Like my uncle, one of my uncles, he lost a leg. He had emigrated in 1968 to Australia, wasn't familiar with the terrain, and he was working on a construction site, and he got bitten by a spider, which was apparently a redback, and he just ignored it because he was some little spider, and it got more and more serious, and he wound up having a leg amputated. So, you know.
Yeah. So what's next, Mandy? That pretty much wraps up what you've found so far.
Pretty much wraps it up. As I said, like I'm only just sort of, so I've been sort of researching this a little bit for 2 years. It's only in the next few weeks that I'm going to get the opportunity to really start going out and visiting some of these sites and getting to meet some of the people that have studied it. And yeah, so as I said, I'm not a scientist. I obviously don't study this like full-time or anything, and I'm nowhere near as knowledgeable as people like Dalibor. However, I found this really interesting, and I just really wanted to share it with you guys, and I hope that, like I said, this is enough information so that everybody jumps off here later and then Googles the ancient Egyptian sites of Australia. And there's not only just ancient Egyptian sites of Australia, there were many things of Australian origin that were found. So like, for instance, the Egyptians had boomerangs.
They did, yeah.
Australian gold as well as marsupial bones have also been found in Egypt. And so this really shows us that they had, that obviously they had interaction, seeing as these were found in sealed tombs and things like that. And some people died trying to open these tombs because they were good at booby trapping places. So it's not as though someone could have just snuck through the back and put it in there like, haha, this will trick them. So it's very interesting, and there's so many different origins where we've had contact throughout the world, but they try to say that we only started having contact in the 18th century. But we know that not to be true because Europeans arrived in Australia in the 17th century. So for them to be saying this is 18th century and onwards is just them hoping that people are too busy to actually go and think about it and process it, things like that. And yeah, so
it's the same.
They try and
it's the same thing as
off with a lot of misinformation, but it's quite interesting.
It's exactly the same situation as with the European incursions into North America before Columbus. I mean, you have Celtic DNA that certain American Indian tribes have, like the Nez Perce Indians and I believe the Seminole Indians, where they have. They use words that are based in French, and they have French DNA. And there's evidence that there was a French explorer named Madoc that traveled to the Americas and was never heard from again. And lo and behold, mysteriously at that same time, you have a tribe known as the Madoc appear in North America. You know, so you know, it goes to show you that there must have been contact that predated it, and it must have been not necessarily, you know, he just sailed off into the sunset not knowing where he was going, but that this was like a known location that he was going to, but was for whatever reason kept secret. Because think about it, if you have access to a place that has rich with natural resources that Europe doesn't have, and nobody else knows where this place is, then you've effectively got a monopoly on things like gold or diamonds or whatever it is that they're getting from these places like Australia or North America or other exotic locations.
Yeah, there's one thing I'd like to add to the everyone assumes, because there's been so much more focus on Egypt, that the Egyptians had this huge influence on all these other cultures, and I would agree. But how do we know that through their expeditions like this to other lands, that it wasn't the people from those lands that influenced their philosophies, their religion, their spirituality, added to it, mixed it, blended it in?
What if Egyptian was like the Italian language? It was a conglomeration, a joining and gathering place of wisdom, knowledge, culture, and all the things from all the different parts of the world. I see it like that.
That's interesting.
And one of the reasons I mentioned it is because in the future, we're going to have our Australian friends come back when they're ready, because Mandy's working on some other things. And you can see it there's a couple of magazines that have already published some things, but it's the rock walls with the ancient belief systems in star people. There are carvings and paintings that show these beings that look otherworldly, like almost insectoid typed. And these were the megalithic people. These were the people that predate the Aborigines that did some of this rock art.
Yeah, and some native art.
We can't go into any details with it because it's still being researched. But there are. So in the future, we hope that Mandy will come back, and she's frozen. Mandy's frozen. Her screen's frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
See, in reality, we don't know where humanity originated, but we also know that climate has been changing since forever. How do we know we didn't originate in a place like Antarctica and branched out from Antarctica and settled in the next best place, which would have been, say, Egypt? And then when the climate shifted again, we moved to someplace like Italy, to someplace like Greece or Mesopotamia or whatever. You know, we don't really know what the climate was like. We may know what it was like 15,000 years ago, but we're not exactly sure what it was like, say, 500,000 years ago.
Yeah. They say that this was the fifth age and the fifth major world. I wonder if a lot of that happens with natural earth changes and cataclysms and pole reversals and a lot of these potentials, maybe plasma, electrical events with planetary interactions in the solar system. I mean, there's so many different ways you could look at it. But I wonder if that's a large reason why a lot of these cultures and peoples, like all of a sudden there's evidence that these completely different races were on different continents. I wonder if it was through these massive times of upheaval, people would get moved around all over the continents.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you're seeing like similarities in the writing system of, say, the Australian Aborigines with the Easter Island writings with Mohenjo-Daro, which is in Pakistan. Like, how did these people get from Pakistan to Mohenjo-Daro to Easter Island, which is literally in the middle of nowhere, to Australia, which is also kind of in the middle of nowhere? Which leads me to believe that these must have been either like remnants of a civilization that was seafaring, that had access to high technology, or remnants of some post-cataclysmic human remnant. You know, because
the more and more I see of this, I tell you, the more and more we get into this over the years, and I've been studying some of this stuff since I was 17. I was fascinated with it, and I've let it go periodically here and there. But the more and more I see, the more I can't help but feel that that certain people who think this way are correct. And my brother was just mentioning it to me earlier. For him to say something like that, I'm like, and that is that panspermia. Civilization came from outside of this galaxy, outside of this universe. It came here, it terraformed, it built civilizations, it had technology, got wiped out. When it got wiped out, you damn right they went on a mission. They sent out groups of people, north, south, east, and west, to restore as much of humanity as they could find. They carried that spirituality with them.
Yeah, because what would you do if, like, let's say your city got cut off? If your city got cut off from electricity and communications completely, what would you do? You would send people out on bicycles or cars, north, south, east, and west, to try to find the others. Like, what happened?
That's exactly. There's been movies about that, So they spread out and they take their basic fundamental human spiritual principles of thou shalt, universal laws that David Barry's covering in his video. The way you treat other people,
And that's the thing. If all of civilization got wiped out and the only people that were alive were the five of us, we would be able to pretty much write down the same exact things. We'd be able to each write down the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, some sort of Trinity we would have, because we all have this encoded through the Christian tradition.
And then we go out in groups of 5 or more, 7. They seem to like the number 7. Go out,
And we'd start a government that would be based on what we have today in most advanced countries, which would be like a parliamentary democracy type government, where you have like 3 branches of government. Again, that number 3.
A trinity to oversee, but I see 13 for the foundation, just like the 13 colonies. The divine feminine has to be somewhere in this mix.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yes. That's interesting because European Union was founded by 12 countries, and 12 would be divine masculine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Yeah.
See, and then they set out to do this, but then there were other catastrophes that happened. So because the timelines are off, it didn't like it happened all at the same time. These different civilizations were visited by the same teacher with the same 7 students with the same fundamental basic message. So it happened more than once in the timelines. So it's either a reincarnation of the same person or a manifestation of the same person, or this person was an immortal. I mean,
not necessarily, because look at it this way. Like, I forget what her name is. I think Charlotte Bouvier. She's a Canadian archaeologist who discovered basically the entire Egyptian dynasty, an Egyptian dynasty in Turkey. With the same names, same symbolism, and same everything, which means that they just recycled the names. It's just like we recycle our names nowadays. Because, like, for example, my name is Dalibor, and yes, my father's name was Dalibor, but he was named after a man named Dalibor who lived in the 12th century in my country.
What's amazing?
That doesn't mean it's the same man.
Yeah. Right.
Dalibor, I think you're right. And do you guys think that might be a potential for the length of the lives of the King's List? Do you think that these could have been descendants that literally had the same name, and that descendant of that original ruled for 26,000 years or some crazy numbers? Like the King's List. I think about that sometimes. It's like their descendant would carry the same exact name, and it would still be the rulership of, say, Ramses or whatever. But yeah, I always thought about that. If the King's List, these people might have lived a long time, but I don't think they ever live in 20,000 years and stuff. So with that, I see those names just carrying through the descendants on and on and on.
Yeah.
That could be the case.
That's another possibility. Karen, I was talking to Karen about it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mandy.
Can I just ask, so when you talk about the kings and the pharaohs, so yet again, I just kind of get thoughts and I'm like, oh, I wonder. So I was sort of shown that pharaohs and kings were 2 completely separate things. It was the pharaohs that could live for thousands of years, and therefore the kings tried to replicate this, hence why they would pass down their name as to make it seem to anyone outside like it was the same rulership.
That would make sense, because the pharaohs might still have the demigod genetics, right? And then the kings were produced out of those demigods.
Well, yeah, in the Egyptian nomenclature, the king would be what we would call a king was their pharaoh. So their kings were actually like dukes or princes.
Wow,
interesting.
Amazing.
Well, I was chatting with Karen about the Michelles. You know how we have the invasion of the Michelles?
Yeah.
And I was talking to her about the meaning of the name Michelle, and Jules and I had worked on breaking it down a little bit. And she said, did it ever occur to you and that the Michelles are operating on a program? Let's say we're all in a matrix. This is a little bit off the Egyptian track here, but then again, it might not be.
It's
so
interesting.
I'm mentioning it because it's interesting, because she's like, what if there's a major program running and it's the Michelle program, but then the subroutines are the Michelles, the way they do their transformation work differently. They're all transformation coaches. They have the same program in terms of what their function is in this lifetime right now. But each one of them approaches their task slightly differently. There's benefits to each one of their training programs. And they focus on slightly different things. They're subroutines. And
that is so funny. That's like the whole lesson that God wants everybody to learn right now. It's like no one will ever do it the same. So stop putting people and things and ideas and things in boxes. We've got to stop dividing and start blending, because all three Michelles are all transformational healers, and they all do it completely different ways. And that is the beauty of the aspect of Michelle, that trinity of diversity. Can you imagine that exponential in its expression? Exponential. And that brings millions of more eyes and more perceptions to that Michelle identity. It's beautiful. It's the diversity key is what we really need to unlock and understand. This is where we're going to get our ultimate power from, is from that diversity, the spectrum of different perspectives coming together in a combined thought.
Is that not what these leaders are, though? The Odins, who would be Hermes, who would be Thoth?
Yeah,
and also
and Mithra and Tammuz and Dimitri, and there's so many gods that have the whole 3 days in the
similar
tomb.
Message, almost the exact same message.
All born on Christmas Day. All of them. Born of a virgin.
Dimitri is derived from Greek Demeter, who was a female goddess. Demeter, Dimitri, that's male and female versions of each other. And also interesting that Odin is like the main one god of the Scandinavian people, and Odin in Russian means one. And some have theorized that the Russian people actually came from Scandinavia.
Yeah. I think Jules is trying to tell us something. I'm sorry. Jules, what's up? You're on mute, honey. There you go.
No, you're back.
Were you joining in there? You're muted again.
She's home. I could read that.
Home. There you go. Now she keeps muting somehow.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't know why it's keep muting her.
There you go.
I'm not doing it.
Speak, my sister. Speak, my sister.
Well, you said Dimitri.
Yes.
Dimitri, yes.
The tree on the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Odin was hanging from a tree.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and there was Christ died on a cross, and then there was 2 or 3 others that were on a tree. Yeah. So this just all of this looks like. So what Karen was saying, I was like, man, when it goes all the way back to the beginning of time.
And also in the Avatar religion, the goddess Awa, she was symbolized by a tree.
A tree, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did Mandy drop off? All of a sudden, I don't see Mandy. Did she drop out?
She did drop off.
She did. Yeah, she might have lost it.
It's 10:36. We've been doing this for about an hour and a half, and I do have a couple of announcements, and I just wanted to see if either you or Trina had any kind of a reading or a poem or anything you wanted to share today with the group. I think you've done enough, Jules. But I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to cut you off. I wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else you wanted to add. Yeah, I do have an announcement for you all, and this is going to be a treat. This is going to be a treat. I talked, and I'm hoping that the schedules work out okay. But if we do Esoteric Egypt again in another 2 weeks, Scotty Roberts has said that he would like to come on and share some of his spiritual experiences and things that he felt and went through while he was in Egypt on some of his tours in Egypt. He's been there a couple of times, maybe 2, 3, I can't remember how many. And he said he would love to come on and share those stories with us. And there's also some work that he had done that I touched on in our first show, where he was actually the one that told us about, on his program, the symbol of the Ayin being part of the internal structure of the pyramid, and that tie to Enoch. So he had a whole 3-part series on that. It went on for over a week on his channel. So he could talk with us a little bit about that as well. So our next surprise guest would be Scotty Roberts, for those of you who know him.
That would
Yeah.
be very interesting.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
You know what else is fascinating about Egypt that I learned from Chris and Cherie Geo?
Mm-hmm. What was that?
Remember when they went to Egypt? That was what, in 2018?
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, and they went
Well,
inside
it
the
was
king's
back.
chamber.
Yes, they did. And did you guys catch what was written on the wall?
No.
Yeah.
No.
COVID-19.
COV. You got it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It sure
What?
was, and this was a year before any of this. It was
Mhm.
literally they were going through the films of their recordings, and Chris, I think Chris caught it. He was like, "Cherie, rewind that," and they
Yeah.
looked on the wall. It's clear as day.
Yeah.
It is
COVID-19.
exact. So you know
Wow.
this. Yeah,
Wow.
this to me, yeah,
Mhm.
that was present there at that time, and then it showed up in our reality. This also tells me that this might be a way to manifest our timelines, to choose which
Yeah,
direction things go
almost
into.
it almost reminds me of the Bible code, where you can't necessarily use the Bible code to predict the future, but you can always find events that happen inside the Bible code once you know they happened. You know,
Yeah.
you can always
Yeah.
find them in the past. If you read the book by Drosnin called the Bible Code, it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this is what this is what Scotty looks like. I don't know if you could see that really well. Some of you know him. His
Yeah,
show's
he's
going
awesome.
on.
Yeah, hold it there for a second, will you? There
Yep,
you go.
there he goes.
That's
His,
him.
Mhm.
His show's going on right
Scotty
now.
Roberts.
Yeah,
Yep.
Scotty Roberts. And he wrote these really cool books. This one is called The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim.
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 Yep.
Okay, it's an excellent book. I've read it like twice now. He has another one that he wrote with John Ward, who did the traveling with him. It's called The Exodus Reality.
Mhm.
The Exodus
Wow.
Reality. And
Look
it's
at you go, Scotty. Wow.
yeah, and this is a fantastic book because he has his own theory.
Awesome.
He and John each have a theory on who they think Moses really was. And the timelines for that. So it's a fascinating book. And he's done his, if you go to his YouTube channel, in his archive, you can see that he's attacking each chapter here one by one, and you can listen to it. He's got some fantastic information. And I love the man to death. He knows that. And I can't wait to, so if he's going to try to come on in a couple weeks from now, and he's got a lot of stories. So I said, tell us the one about the dude that, the vision you had when you were in Egypt, he was sitting on the side of a temple wall, and he had a vision. Scotty doesn't usually get all that but he had this vision of this whole scene that was going on in Egypt. And so some folks in the chat room have heard the story, but others have not. And he had an entity that showed up in one of the pictures too.
Wow.
So he's got some experiences and a lot of traveling in Egypt that he can add to the show. So
you know what's interesting?
Yeah.
We're talking about Egypt and all that. My dad went to Egypt, and that's how I have that necklace with the hieroglyphs with my name on it. That's why I kind of understand some of that. But he brought back 3 pyramids from Egypt, and they move by themselves all the time. This has been going on since he brought them home. And another interesting thing was my dad brought 1 piece of papyrus back from Egypt, and it was huge. And it was the Tree of Life.
Wow.
Tree of Life? Wow.
That's amazing.
And what's interesting about the Egyptian Tree of Life is on the branches of the Tree of Life, there's birds.
Oh.
No, the bird, I think the bird symbology of the Egyptian Tree of Life is the representation of the first primal sounds that create the world. I think it comes from the sound of the bird. And I think that's why Thoth has a bird face. It's also about sound and vibration. And, you hear a lot of these ancient languages that you can't really pronounce the names. It's because a lot of them have like pauses, gurgles, cheeps, chirps. They're sounds that we can't audibly make. They're tones. They're literal clicks and sounds and frequencies like dolphins and whales. And, they make sounds that are different than what we can make. I think that one of the major keys of Egypt has to do with sound resonance and how sound can manipulate.
Well, that's another thing that we're going to be talking about. If I can't Scotty on with Dalibor and Jules and I have something that we've been reading about the activation of the forestry, the trees, and how, and Karen should be on for that discussion too, because it talks about the crystal grid. So it all kind of fits together. Bits and pieces of it.
It all ties together because, like, the Hebrew word for tree is etz, and that sounds like etc, like etc. But also interesting is the fact that some people have theorized, we were talking about Moses, that Moses was actually Tutmosis. But the Hebrew word for Moses is Moshe. Which is an interesting word because the German word for mosque is Moshe. So, you know, in other words, on some level, that ties in together.
Yeah, that sure does.
You know, that Hebrew with Islamic tradition and Egyptian. So,
yeah. So I'll send you and Trina. I'll be sending you the. Whoa, what is that? Is that Jules?
I think so.
In her car?
Yeah.
It might be. She has her phone on. So anyway, that's too funny. It's like, what else? You hear this beep beep. If I hear her cussing, we'll know what she's really up to.
Or scream.
but no. So anyway, so bringing those folks in and talking about those the pyramid, how it's structured for multi-purposes, I think, not just one purpose, but multi-purposes, and then the reactivation of the Earth after a catastrophe, and then this underground crystal grid network of how the trees exchange information with each other. So you start putting all that together, and you know, I was just like a light bulb. It's just like click. Oh my God, that's how it's done. That must be how it works. So I really would like to explore that because it really has a lot to do with why these places in Egypt and around the world are all structured together to do that. So, and Dalibor thought it was a cool topic too. So.
Definitely. Well, it's undeniable that, like, the Great Pyramid served as some kind of a power source, because we know now that the main blocks that are inside that make up the structures like the King's Chamber contain a high level of quartzite or quartz, and quartz generates a frequency when it's under pressure or when it's exposed to electricity. And by putting that huge weight of the pyramid on top of those structures, generates electricity. And plus, it's in a configuration where you have like 5 different levels of roof above that, which is structured kind of like the layers of a capacitor.
Exactly.
So,
It's almost like it was designed to be some kind of a transducer, emanating radio waves going upward, and they've actually measured those.
It's an ascension chamber. I do believe it's an ascension chamber.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's part of it. And
that's why a lot of people died in that chamber too. I think they couldn't handle the vibration and it killed them.
Probably.
When I was in there, I didn't feel anything special, I must admit. I didn't.
You know, people that have actually laid in the sarcophagus when it was still in the center of the pyramid, most of them say that it messed them up. Like they couldn't handle it.
So it's the frequency. It's the vibrational frequency. Yeah.
So you had these chambers that were like on the lower levels. Maybe it may have been like an initiation chamber for meditation, and they would get frequency downloads, and that would help them through their meditation, because you could only rise to the level of a king or an emperor after you went through certain rituals. So that might be one of the uses. The other is what you were saying, regeneration chamber. And then there's the reset for humanity in the event of a catastrophe. And then you've got this underground network. Now David Barry has this piece where he's got some diagrams that he's using in one of his videos that shows the IN that he's overlaid over the brain, and it hit me. He's got the inside of the Egyptian pyramid inside the brain on his video graphic, and I sat there and I stared at it, and I said, "Oh my God, the brain has chambers."
It's identical
just like the chambers are freaking identical.
Yeah,
to
the queen's the king's chamber, the queen's chamber, and those other two parts is the pineal gland, the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and then the lowest chamber is the thymus. It's all the glandular systems in the brain and the one that connects to the thalamus, the thymus. Yeah, it's crazy.
Which is the same as
it's our heads.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go.
The
right here.
So
definitely some relation.
Put all this together, and there's got to be. I'm just sitting here trying to say, what is that piece that connects them all? Because we've got this, people. We've got this. We've got the frequency, the brain, what's going on in the ear, the brain, the sound. We've got the possibility of regeneration in a technology, and then we have the reset possibility and how the underground communication system works for nature. They're all tied together. Yes. So be thinking about that over the next couple of weeks. I'll send you the material that I have so far.
Well, fact is that all the ancient structures in Europe, like castles, various megalithic mounds and stuff like that, all have underground components to them. Yeah. And most of them are actually connected via narrow underground passages that run for miles and miles and miles that only accommodate like one person going one direction with like stops or rest areas to the side. And nobody knows what the purpose was of these things or why they were created or who created them for what purpose. So, they're all over the world.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a lot of speculation, and there's little pieces of information. What we have are little sound bites or little information bites. But when you start arranging them, yes, you could go off and make up something, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to see if there really is a possibility and what that means in terms of our evolution and what's our next level of evolution really is.
Think about it. Even our modern society builds underground tunnels all the time. We have subways.
Yes.
We have tunnels. So, the ancients did the same thing, possibly for the same purposes.
The Hopi claim their ancestors lived underground in tunnels for years with the star people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hopi say that the ant people are the ones that saved them and that they took them down into the underground and kept them down there for 3 generations and then brought them back to the surface.
Yeah. So anyway, Laurie, do you have that last slide for Mandy? Because she's not here, and we'll bring it up, the very last slide, number 14.
Yeah.
So Mandy and I have a message for you. One of the reasons she's doing this is to you know how she was promoting the idea that people should go out and experiment with the crystals and the bismuth, to take a chance, go out and do something different. Mandy is also exploring, questioning, and as Jewel would say, considering all the angles. I changed it to angels because that's what we all are. So she's saying, look, if more folks went out into their own backyard or into their own state, maybe, or their own area, and actually started questioning things, not just reading what other people have written or books that the scientists say you should read or the, mainstream archaeologists, but use your own mind, use your own intuition, feel these locations, and get out there and explore and question. The more we have an opportunity to share that information and knowledge and grow together. So she really wants people to feel that, if she can do it, you can do it too. Because what Mandy is doing here is incredible. I've been an armchair archaeologist all my life. I seldom have an opportunity to go out, but you know what? I do live in a couple of locations where I could explore a little bit more if I put my mind to it. And it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I just don't know of any places in Germany, and as of right now, we're still in lockdown, and it's not like I can go to a different country and just get in my car and go to a different country like I used to.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that Europe is very small, and I can go from one end of Europe to another in 12 hours. It's not a problem. But now with the lockdowns, I can't do that. So I don't know of anything in my backyard here in Bavaria that I could explore, although I'd love to. So if somebody has any clues or any ideas, I'd be willing to go there. No problem.
Well, I want to thank Mandy because she's not here, and I hope she'll listen. I think she had a technical issue. I don't see her in chat, so
kind of dropped out
we'll
suddenly.
check on her. She may have had a power outage or something.
Mm-hmm.
But she's going to be traveling tonight, and for her, it's already tomorrow where she lives. So she's going to be traveling and doing some more exploring, and I wish her the best and safety with her travels, and thank her very much for putting together this presentation. It was a lot of material.
Yeah.
And really appreciate it. Thank you, Dalibor, for spending time today.
Joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Trina, thank you.
Much love.
Yeah. And then we'll cross our fingers and hope and well, we're just gonna say it. We know Scotty's coming.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
Thank you all very much. Love you.
And it'll be great too to hear about his books and let him do a little promotion on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
You didn't know?
I love
You didn't
books.
know?
I didn't either.
No, I'm super excited. I'm like, yay.
He even has a children's book.
Go, Scotty.
He's got a highly illustrated children's book, Tam O'Hare, The Adventures of Tam O'Hare, which I got from my little surrogate niece. I call her my surrogate niece. It's more like a surrogate granddaughter. And she loved it. You know, I was reading the chapters. I mean, he's got some fantastic illustrations. You know, he does his own illustrations. He's an artist. That's what he does.
Yeah, I did
he's
know
a poet.
that much.
He's a poet. He sings, and he not only sings, he can do a cappella too.
Wow.
He was in a Scottish group of singers.
Yes.
He's
a super talented guy, isn't he?
Yeah, an actor. I mean, he's an all-around Renaissance kind of guy.
Nice.
But the thing is that he beats his. To me, the way he breaks things down with these, he beats these die-on-the-wall. I'm an archaeologist. I've got 5 PhDs and I've got all these degrees. It's like you don't need it if you're like Scotty, because
Theresa, I'm seeing the most brilliant science. I'm seeing the most accurate weather reporting coming out of laymen. They're not coming out of the professionals, and they're the ones that are right. So I think it's time to start paying more attention to each other. Because guys, we're doing a pretty good job just getting curious on our own, you know?
Yeah.
So
and even I think even the speculation has a lot of value because that could serve as a springboard for other research. You know, because
very true.
You know.
So right now he's in Louisiana. He's in Louisiana with his son working on something for the next couple months. So he's not in his home studio. So I can help him by taking some snaps of some things that he's done before and let him come out and give a condensed version of some things. But once in a while, if we could get him on, that would be a lot of fun. So he'll at least come on once. So that's definitely. If I can get him to come back, if I can get him to come back another time for another piece later when he's up to it, you know, I would love to do it. You know,
wonderful.
So, thank you all very much for joining us tonight, and thank you, chat room.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Laurie, for taking up time to put all this together. It was a lot. So
you got it. Yeah, my pleasure.
All righty.
Yep.
Good night, folks. We'll see you next time.
Y'all.
Good night.
Catch us Friday night. We have a special guest Friday night from Israel.
Yes. It's going to be a great show. Yeah.
Guess what? You ready, Trina?
Yeah.
Hold on to your seat.
Tell her.
Mihal, Medina, Michelle. Another Michelle, Medina, transformational life expert.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she focuses on helping you to remove emotional blocks
and triggers.
And triggers. Yeah. Emotional blocks that lead to triggers, removing triggers.
Really sweet gal. Yeah. You're going to really like her.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yep. So she'll be on. Yeah. And Perry Agan introduced her.
That's right.
Perry Agan
thank you, Perry.
Contact her. So Perry, if you're watching, thank you again. Perry's
right on.
Yeah,
right on.
So,
all right,
see y'all
folks.
Friday.
All these wonderful, beautiful Michelles.
They are. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Doesn't anybody named Stacy do transformational? I just want. Just kidding.
Night,
Good night, everyone. Bye.